For many years, I had this repetitive dream that I was being pursued by a predator, and it came in different forms, but it was usually a man that was like a psychopathic type of man, and I was terrified in these dreams, and I would run and run and run and try to hide, and I'd be going in through town, and it usually was dark, and I would be looking for anything that was lit, some light, that somewhere I could get help, because I just felt helpless and it's so terrified. It was a terrifying dream, and I had this dream repeatedly over the years. And during therapy one time, my therapist introduced an idea to me that I hadn't thought about before, and she said, I was sharing this dream, I was sharing a familiar dream with her, and she said to me, have you ever tried to turn around and face the predator in your dream? And I had never really even thought about stopping in a dream that I could do that. I just felt victim to whatever I was dreaming. I didn't stop and think, well, and I think I even said that to her, well, I didn't know I could do something in my dream, like make myself do something different. She goes, yeah, a lot of people do. She goes, you could try, just put the intention out there that you're going to turn around and face this predator. Well, it wasn't long after she introduced that idea to me that I was having another one of those dreams. And in the middle of the dream, I stopped, I turned around, I faced the predator, and I just, with all my might, shoved him. And I was the same height as him, where I feel like in previous dreams, I was smaller, he was bigger, and he fell backwards, and I literally have never had one of those dreams since. It completely alchemized that fear inside of me, facing that fear. And so today I want to, with this story, utilize this whole idea to help you alchemize your triggers. Because triggers, negative triggers, all they are is an emotional reaction to some stimuli in our environment. And the emotional reaction comes from a place of deep embedded fear that has not been resolved. So stay tuned. Triggers are something that happens to everybody every day. They are simply emotional reactions to things, and they can be positive or negative. So we have a very neutral baseline of our emotions. Okay, so when we're going through the day and we're cleaning the house and running our errands and we're just kind of in auto mode, getting stuff done, most of the time we are at that baseline. Then different things can happen, or thoughts can come. Little things sometimes we don't even recognize trigger us, and suddenly we're not on that baseline anymore. We could feel really happy and high, or we can start feeling a little insecure. We can start feeling frustrated. We can start feeling depression, and all these things that are taking us away from that baseline, that neutral baseline of emotion. A lot of times we're not even aware of what is going on beneath the surface, that we are being triggered by something. Not being aware of what is really going on inside of us can make us feel very victim to the circumstances in life, or to our emotions. We can feel like we have a lot of emotional dysregulation. We might label it in a lot of different ways. We have depression, we have seasonal depressive disorder, I forget, that affective depressive disorder. There's all kinds of labels. We have bipolar, all these different things that they label our emotions when we don't know exactly what is going on within us. So the first thing that I want to introduce here is that something I always tell all my clients, and I say a lot in my videos, awareness is key. It is a key. Becoming acutely aware of what's going on inside of you. When you become aware, suddenly you have a key. That's a key to start unlocking some of the places and some of the things in your life that you feel very stuck in and very victimized by. So what typically can happen when we are unaware of what is going on inside us at a more subconscious level is we can feel emotionally triggered in a negative way, and then we react to that. And different situations can bring on different reactions. And you hear in the terminology fight or flight, or freeze or fawn, and all those type of things that we can go into. But typically what a person does is, if they're feeling something inside them that is taking them away from that baseline in a negative way, making them feel something they don't really want to feel, is they may, number one, project on to something or someone else. So they may project what they're feeling is the fault of what that person did, or the fault of where they're living, or the fault that they have to go to work today, or the fault that it's, COVID, whatever the reason, they usually take that feeling and they project it onto something else. And that's one way of moving it away, like pushing that feeling away, not taking responsibility for it, and not becoming aware of what's truly going on down underneath. That is one way that you would fight. That would be you have your fight or flight, is the projection, because now it's somebody else's fault. Put up your dukes, get out of my way, and I'll be fine. That's one way of dealing with or reacting to an emotional trigger. The opposite of the fight is the flight, and that's the running from it. So it's the, let me back up here. Perhaps you were triggered by the way somebody looked at you, and your mind that you're not aware of went into, oh, they don't like me, I did something wrong, blah, 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 and you become apologetic. You start being apologetic just in your demeanor even, but you might even apologize for something you said or did, or something that's going on that really you have no control over, but you become apologetic about it. Like you have to apologize and try to make it right. And this is the opposite of the fight. It's the flight. Let me run from this. Let me diminish myself. Let me devalue myself. Let me become less. For myself on social media, it was very difficult for me to get in front of a camera for many reasons. I had to overcome a ton of stuff, and I won't even go into all of it. But one of the things was when somebody had a negative comment, it would trigger a reaction in me. And that reaction would be to take down the thing that I put up that triggered the negative comment. And so, or to apologize for it in some way. And that is a form of flight. Now, I'm not going to get into all the psychological terminology because that's not what this is about. But another way that people typically may react is by stuffing the feeling down through eating, grabbing a cigarette, grabbing a drink, getting super busy with something and getting themselves distracted. If it's an unpleasant conversation or thought, not going into the conversation with somebody, avoidance, all that type of thing. Those are ways that we typically react when we're triggered. And the reason I wanted to bring this video specifically for my audience is because I have many times worked with clients that are in these cycles, in relationships or in life. They're in these cycles that they go through where they're on their emotions, which you call emotional dysregulation. You're learning how to regulate your emotions so you're not woo, woo all the time, right? So they're on this feel-good high place, and then they make that plummet eventually. They make a plummet, and the plummet usually comes in the form of a trigger, usually with another person in their life. It usually has to do with some type of a relationship, and something is said, a look is had, or a comment is made, or they are ghosted or something like that, and they are emotionally triggered, and they go through this plummeting, and then they go in this complete cycle of feeling all upset, all emotionally triggered, and then they do one of those things, right? They go into, well, I'm gonna leave the situation. I'm just gonna go distract myself. I'm gonna go get a drink. I'm going to do this. And it can even come in the form of, I'm gonna do something to make me feel better that seems like it's healthy. I'm gonna go work out or whatever. It can come in that form, but it's still a way to, let me get away from this feeling. I don't like it. And then they calm it down, and then slowly they start getting back to baseline. Then the person or the thing in their environment comes back in, re-triggers, or they might get high with being with that person or be up here in a high state, and then that same trigger reappears, and then the whole cycle goes again. So there's a complete cycle. And then you do this over and over and over and over again, and you start to see it yourself. You start to go, what's wrong with me? You know, you start asking those questions. What am I doing wrong? Even though you may be blaming, well, it's because of them. You know, if they would just change, if they would just do something different, or it's because of, you know, whatever. And you completely absolve yourself of any power over your situation when you do that. You completely take away your sovereignty when you say it's because of them, I have no choice. That's a slave mentality. So in this video, I want to help you to be able to get out of the cycle. The first key that you need, the key, remember at the very beginning I told you, the key that you need, number one key that's going to get you out of the cycle, is awareness. You first have to be aware of your trigger and what it is that's being triggered. If somebody came up to me and said, you have the weirdest black eyes I've ever seen, I would, and I didn't know this person, I would look at that person and I would be like, okay, like that person's kind of strange. It would just be, yeah, I'd just leave it with that person because it really had nothing to do with me. That person, for one thing, would come up to me and say something random, and I know I don't have black eyes, and I'd be like, okay, let me just stay away from that person. I would not absorb any of that. There would be nothing inside me that would cause a triggered reaction to that. Okay, so you have to have something inside you that's like a gunpowder that trigger actually hits for you to be triggered by what somebody else is doing. And it's becoming aware of that is the first step in alchemizing the trigger and getting out of the cycle. So if somebody came up to me that I knew and loved, that their opinion of me meant something to me, like I held them in high esteem or whatever, and they looked at me and they said, hey, you know, have you ever thought about getting a nose job? Now that might trigger me because I've always had issues around my nose. I have, if you see, I've never cared for my nose, okay? And then I broke it, I slid it across my face several years ago, and now I have a big scar on it and it's crooked on top of it. And so I'm a little sensitive about the way my nose looks. For the most part, not so much anymore. Even if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, no. But for a long time, that would have been something that might have been like, yeah, I know, and might have made me triggered, maybe not a huge reaction in me, but a real deep insecurity inside of me. And not wanting to be seen and pulling back, that flight reaction. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That minimizing and devaluing and all that might have triggered some emotional response in me. So that is what you have to become aware of, is when you are triggered and you're in a cycle of this trigger going on, especially when it comes in the form of a relationship and something that somebody else is doing or saying that is triggering you, and you're going in the cycle over and over again, and you feel like you're trying to do whatever you can to avoid being triggered, but yet, and avoiding the cycle, but yet you think you can't because this person keeps doing the thing that's causing it. Well, that's not quite accurate. It's because you have gunpowder in you. You have beliefs that come from a place of injury about who you are. And when they act a certain way or say certain things to you, it is like gunpowder in you, and it triggers and blows off a massive emotional response in you that you then want to get away from or shove down or project out or do whatever you can to get rid of this feeling that is so unhappy, okay? So let's go into some of the quick steps in the scenario. You're triggered. The first thing is to understand that whenever your emotions start to feel off and away from that baseline, that in a way that feels negative to you, you're feeling insecure about yourself, or it could be something way like, oh, I'm so pissed off or whatever. The first thing and the most important thing to do when you have been triggered is to breathe into the emotion, to recognize and say, I've been triggered, and to stop any storylines about it and to breathe into what you're feeling. So for me, a lot of times when I get triggered, I feel it right in my chest. A lot of people do, or a lot of people feel it in their gut, like they've been punched in the gut. I feel it in my chest, like a deep fear, like when I had been pursued that time. That's where I'll feel a trigger hit me the strongest. And sometimes I also have noticed more recently, I get nauseated. I get very nauseated. So those are two things I could say, okay, I'm being triggered by something. And a lot of times for me, it is a thought process. It might be something I saw or something I heard. It doesn't necessarily have to be something somebody did. But in the case of a relationship, let's just look at it this way for the sake of this video and to simplify it. In this case, say somebody said something that you are very upset about now, and they're always doing this. They always do this. First of all, breathe into it. Breathe into where it is. So you want to calm your central nervous system. And I do have a video on a couple videos, and I'll put links for them down below this video on how different ways that you can calm your central nervous system. But the easiest and quickest way to start to calm your central nervous system is to breathe and to slow down your breath and to breathe into the area. So if you're feeling it in your chest, to just kind of try to clear your mind of it as much as possible. Like, okay, I'm not thinking about that right now. Okay, not right at this second. I'll get to it. But right now, at this second, I'm just going to, let me calm my central nervous system. So that way, when you go back to think about it, your mind can be in a state where it can reason through it a little bit more. Because if you just try to immediately try to reason, and you're in this high triggered state and you try to reason with it, and you're going to keep triggering yourself, and you're going to actually make it worse. So first, calm yourself. And once you are calm, then go back to the trigger and ask yourself, why does that bother me? What triggers inside of me? What is it that bothers me? And it's not, well, it's because our immediate thing, oh, because they have this look on their face or they have this attitude, right? But what is it? Why does the attitude trigger you? What is the gunpowder inside your soul? What is it inside your soul, the wound inside your soul that's being hit by that? What message or belief about who you are you internalizing when that happens? Just to use myself as an example of something I've had to break through, a huge trigger, is when somebody, my significant other, would come in around me and be upset. I would automatically, because of my own upbringing, I was always tuning into those around me. Okay, so you may be very strongly empathic and tune into people. And because of my upbringing, I took the position of it was my responsibility to make sure that I calmed situations and that I brought peace, and that it was my responsibility. Like somehow, some way, I was responsible for the way they were feeling. And so my first inclination when I'm around people that are in a bad mood is to take it on personally and to feel like I either need to help them get out of their bad mood. That's my responsibility to do that. Or I've done something. It's my very presence that has caused this. And this is from the wounds and the messages that I took on as a child as a result of the abuse that I suffered at the hands of my biological father. So the process that I had to go through is I first had to start recognizing when I was triggered. And it didn't, every time I was triggered didn't mean it was because somebody was in a bad mood. But a lot of times, that's exactly what it could mean. It could even be that I'm in the grocery store in line and there's people that just look crabby and kind of, you smile at them and they just glare at you. And I wouldn't even really be aware of it, but I would notice that I was leaving the store. I felt drained and I felt like my confidence was gone and all, you know, was spiraling emotionally. And so it's taken me a while to fine tune and realize, listening to the cues and realizing, okay, I'm not at baseline, what just triggered me? And becoming aware of that and then going, oh, there's that, I've gotten to a place where I go, oh, there's that trigger again. That's just, you know, I can let that go. And I can let it go so quickly now. So practicing this is powerful. So you first say, I've been triggered. You tell yourself that out loud if you can, but acknowledge very clearly to yourself, I've been triggered. Let me calm myself down. And then breathe into the trigger and slow the breath down as much as you can. So I usually start out like, and then I go, okay, slow it down. Because the first thing is I need breath, because whenever we're triggered, our breath almost becomes non-existent. We stop breathing, basically. We get still and it's that fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. All those physical things start to happen. So to reverse the physicality of it, you start to slow down. So then you start to go, okay, into the area and then hold it for a minute and blow it out until you start to feel it, that feeling dissipate. And when you feel calm enough around it that when you think about it, it's not going back into there again. Now you can say, okay, I was triggered because my significant other came in here all pissed off and, you know, started ranting about something. And it triggered me, okay? Then you can instead take that trigger, that feeling. So what did that make me feel like? Well, that makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong. Now I can take that and I can say, okay, I'm gonna bring that in. I'm gonna sit down with that, okay? I'm gonna just sit with it and let it just say that to me. You're doing something wrong. And I'm gonna embrace it like a friend. It's going to become like a phantom. And I have a whole course on learning to delete phantoms. And you can find it on my website, but I can leave the link below. But you look at it almost like just a phantom, which a phantom is something that the imagination has created. And so you can bring it into form in any way it could be a cloud, it could be an energy, it could take on any kind of persona. But you bring that close to you and you just sit with it. Okay, I'm gonna sit with that. I made him upset. There's something wrong with me. All the things that thing's trying to say to me, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'll never be loved. I'll never be accepted for who I am. It's probably because I'm too fat. It's probably because I have a crooked nose. They'll never love. They never did love me. I don't think they ever did love me. And just let all those just kind of come in and look at them as a phantom outside yourself talking to you. Look at them. Allow them to be there. Just let them be there. You're not freezing. You're not running. You're not fighting it. And then once you've just embraced it and let it be what it was, now you choose from your sovereignty whether you want to believe that or not. You go into your sovereignty and you tell yourself, okay, I'm sovereign over my life. And I'm the one that invites what I choose and decide what is in my life. I'm sovereign over it. And I'm going to choose and decide right now whether or not I believe any of that. And if I choose and decide, I just don't want to believe it. I don't even have to go into whether it is true or not true, whatever, because it doesn't matter, because we are creating our reality and I'm sovereign over my life and I'm creating my queendom, and I choose not to believe that. I can see where it came from. I know it started in my childhood. I know it's something I carried. I know it was a trigger inside of me, but I choose, and I know, I'm aware. I've opened the door to it with my awareness. I've opened the door, I've invited it in, and it's sitting there before me, and now I'm going to tell it. You know what? I choose Thank you for what you've tried to do for me, to protect me, whatever. You can do it in a kind way, and you could just say, but you know what? I choose not to believe this. I don't want this energy in my life anymore. And I choose to see it this way instead, like I would with anybody that walked past me in a bad mood that I didn't even know. Wonder what's going on in their life that's making them so crappy. Wonder what's going on in their energy. I wonder what they're feeling about themselves, why they're so triggered, that they're feeling something about, not that I have to wonder and think about it and think it through, but it kind of just putting it back on them. Like, oh, that's not even mine. That's theirs. That's just theirs. It has nothing to do with me. Even if they turn around and try to tell me, well, you and you this and you that, and if you didn't do this and if you did that, I'm gonna look at them and think, whoa, boy, they're in a bad mood. Look at all the projecting that they're doing, trying to run away from their own wounds. No, I'm glad I know in my sovereignty that that's not true, because I choose not to believe that. And furthermore, you could do some journaling to write down what you do believe about yourself in that and keep it positive. So I choose to believe that I'm doing my very best, and my very best is always enough. That I always get what I want in life, and that life is always for me and always working out for me. I choose to believe that even though sometimes I may run up against negative energy, that is something that is just a reflection that has come from something inside me, and I can own that and I can alchemize it. I choose to believe in the goodness of life. I choose to believe in my goodness. I choose to believe that I am always enough, because it's my life and it's enough for me. And you just replace all that negativity with what you do want to believe. So fill your cup back up. And of course, when you start this, when you start practicing this, it's going to be the very beginning. The very first one is going to be owning that you've been triggered. That's the thing, is you recognizing, because sometimes we just go through life so unconscious and we're triggering all over the place. We're high here, low there, this there, and we're not even in tune to how we feel until at the end of the day, we just feel so drained and exhausted and irritable and snapping at others and projecting on them and thinking if I didn't have so much responsibility, people would just do their part and blah, 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 blah. And we get all this bitchiness going on because we're so unaware throughout the day of our own energy that we're carrying around and our own triggers. So your first step in it is just becoming aware. That's your key. Okay, I'm neutral, I'm feeling good right now. Boom. I'm going along and I notice, oh, I'm starting to feel really depressed. What's going on? I've been triggered. I'm feeling depressed. I've been triggered. What's going on? Well, let me breathe into it for a minute. What made me feel depressed? Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe it was the weather. I don't know. Maybe I can't. Maybe I'm too busy and I can't right at this moment sit with it, but I am going to acknowledge that I'm feeling depressed. And these are the things that I feel that feel depressive to me. It's kind of a rainy, bleak day. You know, and just maybe take a couple mental notes about why you feel depressed that you can think of, and then just set it aside, breathe into it and go, okay, I'm not going to think about that now. I'll think about it later. Because maybe you can't. Maybe you're in the middle of the grocery store, you're at work or whatever, and you can't do the processes. But it is acknowledging I've been triggered. Sometimes you'll realize it, and then making time later in the day before you go to bed or early in the morning or time during your break at work or whatever, to sit with it, Let me bring back that trigger. Let me invite it in now that I'm aware of it. Let me ask myself why. What is the message? What is the belief inside of me that is making me feel this way? What is it? And let me invite it in and embrace it. Even if I don't have super, you know, clarity on exactly what the belief is, I can still invite it in and say, okay, but I choose in my sovereignty. I choose not to have depression. I choose not to believe that rainy days will always make me feel depressed. I choose to find beauty in clouds and rain. I choose to release and let go of maybe something, a memory that is related to it. I choose to let that go. I choose to embrace it, hold it, acknowledge it, and then let it go because I'm sovereign. This is a very powerful way to break cycles in your relationship. And there's a lot here. So I would suggest that you listen again to this. And if you want to work with me further and really start to get to a place where you're living your life with more intention, where you're building up your confidence, your self-love, where you're letting go of a lot of these cycles that you keep revisiting over and over and over again, then please visit my website. I have several courses there, and I also have a way that you can work with me one-on-one via Marco Polo or Facebook Messenger for an entire month. And you can do it in conjunction with a course. But I have some really powerful courses, and especially if you're at the beginning of this journey, I highly recommend that you go through the Genuine Self-Love course methodically and with commitment and with an eagerness to watch how powerfully and how magically your life can begin to transcend, to transform, and that you begin to alchemize these triggers in your life and you begin to live a much more satisfying and peaceful life. So I hope this has been helpful. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you're always notified when I have a new video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.